China is warning its neighbors in Southeast Asia not to support the United States. The Communist Party's deputy foreign minister called the United States a troublemaker and the biggest threat to peace in the South China Sea. Their deputy foreign minister also says China isn't afraid of trouble. Take note. Well, the U.S. State Department imposing tighter restrictions against Chinese diplomats in this country. They will have to now get permission before visiting U.S. colleges and universities or holding cultural events, so-called, with more than 50 people outside embassy grounds. Well, to take this up, State Department spokesperson Morgan Ortagus joining us tonight. Morgan, good to see you and to have you here.
Thank you, Lou.
The purpose of these restrictions, we now have 75 of the Confucius Institutes still in place. I talked with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo earlier this week. He said he would be happy if there were none here by the end of this year. Is that the direction we're headed?
Thank you so much for having me on, Lou. So if you look at what President Trump and Mike Pompeo are doing, it is to establish reciprocity in our relationship with China. So right now, you were just talking about Chinese diplomats in the U.S. They are treated fairly here. They're given free access. They can talk to state and local leaders. They could go to university campuses. Our American diplomats in China cannot do any of that. They have to receive permission. They have areas in China that they're not allowed to go, and they often don't get that permission. So we have engaged them here at the State Department. We have said we would like all of our diplomats to be treated the same way in both countries. Since they have refused that, we have said, fine, your diplomats, your Chinese diplomats in the United States will have to get approval before they meet with state and local leaders. Their social media accounts will need to be identified as government accounts. Meanwhile, this is the social media that that Chinese citizens don't have access to, and they're going to have to get approval for events. We would love for our American diplomats to have the same free and open access that Chinese diplomats have here, but so far, the Chinese Communist Party has not allowed that.
Yeah. You're not saying we haven't figured out that the Chinese are a bunch of communist totalitarians and who are not going to behave as does the government of the United States, surely. When Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, says he wants zero Confucius Institutes because they're basically hubs for spying, espionage, and the theft of intellectual property on our nation's campuses, why the hell aren't we getting rid of them?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Lou. You have to remember, not that long ago, we closed the Chinese consulate in Houston just for that matter, because we found that it was basically ground zero for the intellectual property theft of American research and American medical research from universities and hospitals in the United States. So the first step that we've taken with these Confucius Institutes is to designate them as foreign missions. What does that mean? We're essentially letting these 75 Confucius Institutes and the 500 satellites that are on campuses around the country. We want these universities, and we want people to know when they walk into Confucius Institutes, they're not walking into peaceful cultural centers. They're walking into propaganda arms of the Chinese Communist Party. So we have designated them. We've taken those actions.
To go on?
Well, we've taken the first step, and the first step is designate.
I mean, why not get rid of them?
Well, I think the Secretary made it clear to you that he was on the way there. Yeah. Yeah, everything that we are doing, as the Secretary said to you, he hopes that we can get them down to zero. Everything we're doing, whether it's on the South China Sea, Confucius Institutes, closing their institute in Hong Kong, making their diplomats have the same treatment that our diplomats have in China, we will continue now and onward to put pressure on the Chinese Communist Party to understand that there are 40 years where through Republican and Democratic administrations, people turned their eyes, turned their head, ignored what was happening. The Trump administration, President Trump and Mike Pompeo are not doing that. We're holding them accountable. They've never been held accountable anywhere in the world like this administration is now holding them accountable.
And, excuse me, in Ecuador, the Galapagos Islands, 360 fishing, Chinese flag fishing vessels doing just as they please without interdiction or intervention by the United States, the United Nations. This is preposterous. This is our hemisphere. And we're not behaving like the Monroe Doctrine is even remotely in effect. Has this administration decided to maintain the Obama suspension of the Monroe Doctrine?
Well, absolutely not. We have started speaking out in support of Ecuador and our other allies. I think it's important for your audience to know, and I know you've covered this, Lou, that the Chinese Communist Party underwrites these commercial shipping vessels around the world, as they do with many private sector entities, of course, in China. And what happens is these commercial, quote unquote, commercial fishing fleets will overfish. They'll fish without license. They'll do things like killing the sharks and taking their fins, which is just abhorrent to anybody who grew up near the ocean like me. But it's just a part of a broader campaign where we are calling them out. We're telling them you are no longer going to get away with this. We support our allies in Southeast Asia who are dealing with them in the South China Sea and their unlawful maritime claims. And we're going to support Ecuador and our allies here in this hemisphere. This behavior has gone ignored by both parties for 40 years. President Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo are putting a stop to it.
Okay. Morgan Ortagus, good to see you. Thanks for being with us.